6.2 is on systems of linear equations in 3 variables. Your assignment is going to be page 494 to 497. Get this pencil to work. Page 494 to 497, 3 to 36 multiples of 3. So we're going to start with number 3 and see how far we can get. So problem number 3 is x minus y plus 2z equals negative 3, x plus 2y plus 3z equals 4, and 2x plus y plus z equals negative 3. So what I got to figure out is what combination of x, y, and z will work for all 3 equations. And you can't solve it when there's all 3 equations. So what we've got to do is we've got to get it down to 2 equations with 2 variables, because we learned in the last section how to solve those. Okay, so I'm going to look and I'm going to decide what I want to cancel, whether I want to cancel my x's or my y's or my z's. And it really doesn't matter what you pick, but if I look here, it'd probably be easier to cancel the x's or the y's. I'm going to let my 4th period pick what we're going to cancel right quick. Okay, we're going to cancel the x's was their decision. So I'm going to take these first 2 equations, and what I want to do is, just using the first 2 equations, I need to figure out a way to cancel out the x's. So if I'm going to do that, what I need to do is, if you'll look, they're both an x. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to multiply one of these lines by a negative 1. And I think because this one has some negatives in it, I'll go ahead and multiply the top line by negative 1. So the top line becomes negative x plus y minus 2z equals 3. And the bottom line stays the same. All right, so now I'm going to add these 2 lines together. When I do that, the x's cancel, and I get 3y plus z equals 7. Okay, so I used the first 2 to cancel the x's. Now I have to use another pair of equations to also cancel the x's. I can't use the first 2 again, so it either has to be the second and the third, or the first and the third. I'm going to let my 4th period pick what we're going to do. All right, so they picked to use the second and the third. So I'm going to write them down and then see what I'm going to have to do to cancel the x's. So it becomes x plus 2y plus 3z equals 4. And 2x plus y plus z equals negative 3. All right, guys, what do I have to do to cancel out the x's? By negative 2. I'll multiply the top by a negative 2, so that way they'll be opposite. So the top becomes negative 2x minus 4y minus 6z equals negative 8. I multiplied every single term by negative 2. And I'm going to keep the bottom just like it was. Now I'm going to add these 2 lines together, and the x's will cancel. So the x's cancel. I get negative 3y minus 5z equals negative 11. Okay, so now I have a pair of equations, the 3y plus z equals 7 that I got by combining these 2, and the negative 3y minus 5z equals negative 11 that I got from combining the last 2. So now, looking at these 2 equations, do you want to cancel the y's or the z's? Look at those equations. Look how they're set up. The y's already cancel. All you got to do is add these 2 lines together. The y's cancel, and I get negative 4z equals negative 4. So what is z? 1. There's a third of my answer. So z is going to be 1. Now go back to one of these. I'm going to go to this equation that had a y and a z. I want to pick an equation that just had z and something else. So go back here. So 3y plus z, which is 1, equals 7. So now let's solve for y. I get 3y equals 6. Divide by 3, y equals 2. So y is 2 and z is 1. Now go back to one of your first equations. I'll use this last one here. And I get 2x plus y, which is 2, plus z, which is 1, equals negative 3. So that's 2x plus 3 equals negative 3. Subtract 3, you get 2x equals negative 6. Divide by 2, x equals negative 3. And there's my answer. And I write it as a coordinate triple. -3 is my x, 2 is my y, 1 is my z. And if you go back, it would work for every one of these equations. And I suggest that you make sure that it works. That's problem number 3. All right, here's problem number 6. 2x plus 3y minus z equals 1, x plus 2y plus 5z equals 4, and 3x minus y minus 8z equals -7. So now we've got to decide what variable we'd like to eliminate first. So either x or y or z. You want to do x again? All right, so if I use the first two and I wanted to eliminate x, okay, I'm going to take the first line like it's written, and then I'm going to multiply the second line by a -2. So this will become -2x minus 4y minus 10z equals -8. And somebody said, why a -2? Well, I need the x's to cancel. So if this is a +2 and this is a 1, the way that I would eliminate the x's is by making this line a -2. And if I multiply the entire line by the same number, I've still got a true equation. So now the x's cancel. So the x's cancel, and I get a -y minus 11z equals -7. So now, do you guys want to use the second and the third equation and also cancel the x's? So what I'm going to need to do is -3 times the second equation, which will be -3x minus 6y minus 15z equals -12, and then keep the third equation exactly the same. Now add these two lines together. The x's cancel. I get -7y minus 23z equals -19. -7y, I'm going to write it underneath the other two variable equation that I found by adding the first two together, combining them. Okay, so now I have to decide, do I want to eliminate the y's, where I have a -1 and -7, or do I want to eliminate the z's, where my coefficients are -11 and -23? I would do the y's. I would probably do the top line maybe by a -7, and so that would make this line positive. So the top line becomes -7 times -y is 7y, and then it'd be plus 77z equals 49. Hang on. Okay, and the bottom line I'm going to rewrite exactly like it was written, because the y's will then cancel out. So -7y minus 23z equals -19. Now add these two lines together. The y's cancel. -77 minus 23 would be 54z equals 49 minus 19 is 30. Now when you divide 30 by 54 on your calculator, it's going to give you a decimal. So what you're going to want to do is change that to a fraction. 30 divided by 54 is 0.5 repeating. So what we want to do is we want to write that as a fraction, and to do that, you just push math, enter, enter. My answer for z is 5/9. 5/9. So z equals 5/9. All right, if z is 5/9, then I'm going to go back up here to one of these equations and plug in z. I can do the top one here. -y minus 11 times z equals -7. So that's -y minus 55/9 equals -7. Add 55/9. Now, guys, you've got a calculator. So just on your calculator, do -7 plus 55/9. And again, that's going to be a decimal. So math, enter, enter. So I get -y equals -8/9. So y equals 8/9. So now I have two of my answers. Y is 8/9, z is 5/9. Then go back to one of your original equations. I'm going to use this one because it just had an x. So it's going to be x plus 2 times y plus 5 times z equals 4. So that's x, and I'm going to do the 2 times 8 ninths. 2 times 8 ninths plus 5 times 5 ninths, 5 times z. So that is 41 ninths. So x plus 41 ninths equals 4. Subtract 41 ninths from 4. So 4 minus 41 ninths, and then change it to a fraction, is negative 5 ninths. So x is negative 5 ninths, y is 8 ninths, and z is 5 ninths. And you can check them in all three equations and they'll work out if you plug in the x and the y and the z.